So, shall we begin?
The magic of filmmaking is a process of collaboration on many levels, from rigorous shooting schedules across the globe to the hard-won efforts of editing, sound design, audio and video post, and visual effects. Founded in 1998 by J.J. Abrams and Brian Burke, Bad Robot Productions in Santa Monica, California has been the driving force behind such hit TV shows as Alias, Lost, and Fringe, as well as major Hollywood blockbuster films including Mission Impossible, Super 8, and Star Trek. Recently, we had a chance to tour Bad Robot's amazing production facility as they worked on their newest feature film, Star Trek Into Darkness, to learn more about how Avid is crucial to their day-to-day success and get some seasoned production tips from Bad Robot's world-class film and TV editors. We also got a chance to gain some powerful insight into new cutting-edge surround sound workflows utilizing Media Composer that are sure to set a new standard in the world of TV and film production. Let's check it out.
We have some of the most amazing people working here, and the amazing thing about this building that we're so lucky to have is the unbelievably inspiring intersection of art and technology. And one without the other would be nothing. It would just be half of a whole. And by putting them together in the way that we have, and by having the incredible products that people like Avid make, we've been able to raise our game in a way that is actually kind of spectacular to me. There's the editing rooms, there's the theater, there's the music room, there's the art room, there's our visual effects operation, there are sound edit rooms. We're able to do all of it in one place. What that means for JJ is total efficiency. So he can walk from one room, edit a sequence, go to another room, work on sound design for that sequence, go to another room, hear the current music mixed in. You can go up to the screening room, watch the whole thing, or do a visual effects review, and all of this without leaving the premises. And by doing that, we just get more time with him.
There's so much creativity at Bad Robot. This theater that we're sitting in has been used to, to shoot scenes from Super 8 and to shoot other, smaller projects here. That just put a green screen up. We've done a sound mix in here. We've done color correction in here. They've got writers who are downstairs at the kitchen tables, hashing out their own projects. There's like every aspect of the filmmaking process exists in this building.
It's just a fantastic group of people, and I'm sure there are other places where great groups of people are, but for some reason, I think it's a vibe JJ and his wife Katie put out there, which is, do your thing, be creative. We're all trying for the same thing here, sharing ideas.
JJ and all the other creative people here are used to this very fast-paced thing that I think absolutely comes out of the TV world.
If you're an editor, you can talk to your visual effects artists or to your sound designers or to your writers or to your producers. They cast here all the time also. Having everybody in one location helps keep everybody on the same page. And if everybody understands the creative vision of what you're trying to do, then the end product will be better and will be more in line with what you want and expect it to be.
I love working with them because a long time ago I realized that I was never going to know the things that everyone else knows. There's too much to keep up with, but whether they're assistant editors or visual effects artists or producers or coordinators or anybody, I realized that all of these tools that we have at our disposal are really nothing without the people that are running them and figuring out the solutions to problems. And it's the most inspiring thing in the world.
So Evan, in our relatively short time here, one thing that's become very clear is that collaboration is key to everything that goes on at Bad Robot. In fact, we've talked to picture editors who are now sound editors, and you're one of them. How did that come to be?
Ben Rosenblatt, the post-production supervisor here, called me one day and said, "You're probably not going to want to do this, but we have this crazy idea to try to keep a running 5:1 mix in Media Composer while the editors are cutting. To do that, there's not a lot of assistant editors who know how to use Pro Tools, and there's not a lot of sound designers and sound mixers who know how to use Media Composer very well. So we decided that Media Composer was really the more important skill to have, because that's what, this is the same application that the editors are working in, and the whole point is to try to keep it as seamless for the editors as possible. So he just asked me if I was interested in trying something new, and I said yes.
So this new process that you're using, it must be out of a need. I mean, what was it that drove you guys to want to try and work things this way?
Well, it's always a problem on these big films that you're constantly chasing the cut, because the cut is changing constantly. It's only natural that it would. The film is still coming together. Sound is influencing picture, picture's influencing sound, visual effects are coming in, they're changing the flow of the cut, new lines are being written. It's just the nature of how these things evolve. And it happens so fast that it's always very difficult to keep a dual system happening, especially if you're not literally in the same building using the same storage, and you have to have copies of everything everywhere, and you're constantly keeping each other up to date. That can become a full-time job, and it takes away from the actual creative work.
For many, many years, post-production was handled a certain way, a very linear fashion. You edit, you get the edit to a certain place, and you're ready to turn over to sound. Picture in a certain place, you're ready to turn over to color correction. There is temp color correction, temp sound mixing. You prep for a little, mini screening. It's an extraordinarily expensive process. And beyond that, all of that work you throw out, because when you finish the film, whether it's a digital intermediate and a final mix, or back in the day when there was negative cutting and photochemical finishes, you would literally be starting over. I mean, any temp work that you've done would just be thrown out. That wouldn't be necessary if the software was designed in such a way to let you take advantage of higher quality works in progress as we go. And when we were on Super 8, JJ came to me and said, my dream would be to be able to do a temp mix as we go. That's all in 5.1, so that when we go to screen the movie at any point, we have a really, really great sounding track. Same with color correction. And I heard him and I was like, well, on the next one, I'll see what I can do. Then, as we were crewing up for our current movie, the Star Trek sequel, I remember Media Composer 6.0 came out, and I got an email from Evan Schiff, who is one of my good friends and a wonderful assistant editor, and he said, hey, did you see this? Avid now has a 5.1 audio capability. And I was like really, really excited about it, because I realized that here right now we have the ability to do what JJ wanted. This is exactly what he asked for.
Fortunately, the timing was such that the new version of Media Composer had come out, which has the 5.1 and 7.1 mixing, and we were able to actually do this, because up until recently it wasn't really an option. And for the company to have the faith in the technology and the faith in us to say, try this crazy thing that no one's really done before, and let's see if we can pull it off. And I remember when we did the first playback of the first reel, we all kind of looked at each other and said, you know what? It worked. It sounds like a movie. Like, it really feels pretty damn good.
I'm a little surprised at the moment that Marianne and Mary Jo are being so tolerant of the number of tracks that we're adding to their sequence and the number of clips that we're adding to their sequences. But it's all for the greater good, and it sounds phenomenal, and I think that they're really liking what they're hearing. So it makes it a little bit more difficult for them to edit and keep everything in sync across 16 audio tracks and however many video tracks that they've got going. But I think it's well worth it.
It definitely makes it a much more professional way to look at a cut. I mean, you're really not looking at things in a really raw state. When we do finally sit down and look at the movie all cut together.
We have this 5.1 sound mix going on concurrently with our cuts. Why it's great is, like, I can look at a cut and it lets me know what's working, what's not working, because I see all the elements, and there won't be any of us going, oh, no, that's going to be better when we get the sound effect in, or oh, that's going to be better when, that looks blue instead of green. Fantastic.
It's a completely different way of looking at picture and looking at sound and how you manipulate the media. I'm using Pro Tools 10 with Pro Tools HD Native, locked up with an Avid Mojo DX with Media Composer 6.5. There's a software called Video Satellite that I'm using to link the two with an Ethernet connection, and the timeline's locked together, and I can run Pro Tools and Media Composer in sync with each other. That ends up being a huge benefit to us.
We don't have to stop. We don't have to, bring in stems, and the editors just keep working with their tracks, and we just follow behind them and keep it smooth and sounding great.
By doing a temp mix, and this is essentially, instead of cramming it all into a week, You're doing it over a series of weeks where it's design and mix, design and mix, design and mix, with some cutting in between there as well from the picture department. And it's a very natural, organic way to have the soundtrack evolve.
We realized at various points that we were kind of perhaps the only ones or the first ones doing this. Like we didn't really know anybody else that was doing it, and hopefully more people are doing it now, or maybe even were when we were, but we didn't know anyone, so we were just kind of making it up as we went along. And it was a ton of fun because anytime we wanted to screen, no matter where the mix was at any given point, it was like, okay, well, we can listen to that. It's gonna be better than listening to it in just a 2-track mode. But the brilliance of the workflow, which certainly isn't our brilliance, but that of the software designers, is that the editors could revert back into a 2-track mode with the exact same sequence and listen to it on 2 speakers, and there's no problem. It sounds perfect. Flip it over to 5.1 mode when we're in the theater, and we listen to it in 5.1. It's really an incredible workflow.
So it's often said that editing is the final rewrite of a film, and obviously JJ is the writer in a lot of his projects. Does that make it easier for him or a little bit harder in editorial to make story changes? Should you be presenting to him like, I think maybe it'll work better if we head in this direction?
He is so flexible and not precious about the writing at all. And say a shot that took a long time to set up and he was thinking was going to be one of his favorite shots, if it's not contributing, if it's getting in the way of something, we rearrange the scene so that only the good pieces are in it, and we have a scene that seems organic and that feels like it was written to be this. It's a really fun part of the job, actually. I mean, that's when you get really creative, is trying to figure out how to make a scene do something that it wasn't originally designed to do.
Can you give us an idea of what the editorial setup is for Star Trek II and the overall workflow, what you get and then what you hand off?
Sure. We have basically a big chunk of the film is shot on film. There's a mixture of film formats that we have on this particular project. Most of it is 35 4-perf CinemaScope, and then we have a couple of other formats. We have 65mm 15-perf and 65mm 8-perf, and then we also have a very tiny amount of VistaVision. We have a mixture of Red camera footage and Alexa footage, and all of those different elements need to sort of technically be worked through and tested at the beginning, make sure everything, is going to flow nicely. But there's just nothing like the look of film. It's the grain that's there, the quality that's there, the sort of organic motion as it runs through a projector in the movie theater. There's just something fantastic about it. Now, that's not to say digital is fantastic as well. It looks great. It has a lot of fantastic things about it as well. But for some reason, there's just nothing like the quality of film.
There are some directors that they sit down with an editor and they know what they like or what they don't like, but they don't know the real editorial process or how you're going to have to enact this change they're asking for. Mm-hmm. Where does he fall into the mix? Is he pretty in tune with the technology and the process, or is he just sort of very just story-oriented and just saying, I like this, I don't like that?
That's funny. He's very technically oriented, and he's very story-oriented, and he's very happy to let me do my thing, and however I accomplish it. Our interaction is mostly about story. But occasionally on the set, he would call me and say, look, I put together a cut on my iPad. This is going to work. And I'll be like, great, just, send it on over. If you already made it work, don't let me stop you.
We have to find this thing. I don't feel good about this.
Go! I saw it. No one believes me.
I believe you.
Is there a difference between editing a film project versus a TV project, and why does it seem to be so hard for a TV editor to make that transition to film?
Well, I don't think it's as hard as it used to be. I think it used to be really difficult, but I do know people that work in both genres now. I remember Garth Craven, who's a terrific editor, saying to me once that every cut that you make makes the next cut better, that every cut that you make makes you a better editor, and boy, you make a lot of cuts in TV, where features, you're cutting a lot for a while and then you're stepping back and you're working with visual effects, and maybe you're working with sound, maybe you're in a stage where you're watching the movie a lot to try to determine if you got the structure the best. But in TV, you don't go on and work with visual effects. You don't move on and work with sound or with music or anything like that. You're just cutting every single day. And as soon as you get one episode locked, the dailies are already rolling in for another one.
I don't know that I could have gotten the kind of editorial experience or directing experience or production experience that I got on Alias. It was like a crash course in here's how to make anything. You go through a lot of footage quickly, and you have to be very precise, and you don't have a lot of time to recut, and you got to get it out there, and it's got to be good, and it's got to be, you've got a lot of competition, a lot more competition than feature films have. It's a lot harder job, and it's a lot more time consuming. It's great that I have that experience that I can bring to a bigger, larger format, and I do enjoy perfecting the one film and given the time to do it, and breathe it in and live it. And so I prefer editing features because of that.
Okay, this is a slight wrinkle. We're going to have to go into the server room from the outside.
We?
I'm on the computer.
So you guys have a really unique workflow here at Bad Robot with Pro Tools and Media Composer and Video Satellite all connected via ISIS. Has that helped make it easier for you to make that transition from Media Composer to Pro Tools?
Absolutely. It makes a huge difference because we can just pass things back and forth off the ISIS. In the Video Satellite, we can just log in and open up the bins and work directly off the cuts.
I'm a huge fan of the ISIS. It's a dream. What's so great about having everybody at the same facility and having the beefy 64 terabyte ISIS that we have is that everyone is completely connected. So the screening room, the sound team, picture editorial, even VFX, everyone is able to share the same media. And because everyone's able to share the same media, we're able to work more efficiently, we're able to get things done faster, and anywhere you go in the facility, we're able to access anything that we need.
An ISIS 5000 is what we're using. We just recently hooked Will Files up so that he's got read-only access to all of our picture workspaces. So when I send him a link to AF of the editor's timelines, which is usually the first thing we do before any of us start to get to work, then he can just load it into Pro Tools, takes 2 minutes. He's reading that directly off the ISIS.
Not only are we all in the same building, we're using the same platform, and we're using shared storage so that we're actually able to push stuff around all over the place, and it's just instantly there.
The update from what was the Unity from Avid has been enormously helpful because we're far more extensively wired via Ethernet than we are via fiber, and it's much easier to get your hands on that kind of an infrastructure. What I'm super excited about, and we don't yet have implemented, is the 10 gig Ethernet connections that are possible on the ISIS. I just think the higher quality files that we'll eventually be able to work with will one day, in the same way that the 5.1 tool in Media Composer will lead to a future where sound works in progress are all leading towards the final mix. I think that the 10 gig E will ultimately allow you to work with high quality picture throughout the entire editing process, and the world of the offline won't exist anymore. It'll just be one high quality movie being worked on the whole time.
I would say that Avid is crucial in our workflow for a number of reasons. First of all, for the reliability of the systems. The ISIS is rock solid. Short of a power outage, we've never really had major issues with it. Two, having all of our tools under one company makes the integration that much smoother. And thirdly, it's everywhere. I mean, anywhere you look, any post-production facility, you're going to find Avid, whether it's in editorial, visual effects, sound, music, dialogue. You have to be well-versed in Avid in order to work in this industry.
Just a couple of weeks ago, we had our very first screening of the movie, the director's cut, which For JJ, he's never had this experience where he's been able to watch the whole thing in 5.1 where it sounds like a movie and the dialogue is coming out of the center and there's, sub for all the great effects and there's, panning surround effects. We're able to mix the film as we go and everyone's just kind of blown away, and where that can go, we've just scratched the surface of what it's going to be in the future, and it's unbelievable. Honestly, to be able to have that high quality and to be able to change things up to the last minute, that's the holy grail. Technology has taken us to a certain point on its own. Avid specifically are working to empower us to do things we've never done before.